Alright, now the motherboard and RAM is here. I'm going to get into why I chose this motherboard, this particular CPU, and this particular RAM. Yeah, so I picked a Asus motherboard here. It's really good. I've had one for 8 years and it hasn't missed a beat. The idea behind this build was to have the most power but still keep it cheap. I could have gone with a more low power CPU, but 1.4 gigahertz dual core runs around $33, a modern one. Yeah, it uses not a lot of power, but this CPU here is 3.5 gigahertz and a quad core and only uses 65 watts of power, which refers to how much heat it puts off. When you get above 95 watts, you have to get an aftermarket cooler. When it comes to power supplies and motherboards, you really want to go with a trusted brand, because a cheap power supply will shorten the lifespan of your motherboard because it gives it varying voltage and stuff. Whenever a good power supply, it gives it solid voltages. And the motherboard that this is replacing is what's wrong with the old computer. It had a cheap power supply in it its whole life, and I believe shortened the lifespan of the motherboard. Even though it's lasted about 10 years, I think it could have lasted a little bit longer. Installing the CPU is a fairly easy process. Just lift up this little lever here. Okay, on the corner of the CPU there's going to be some pins that are different, and there's usually an arrow to mark it, and that would be the bottom left corner there. And of course that would mean you have to go in like that. Don't touch the surface of it. And then you just gently drop it in, and it drops into place. Put the lever back down. And then it usually goes over a little plastic piece to hold it down, and there you go. That was the easy part. The coolers are always usually more difficult to install. One thing you do want to notice though, is sometimes there's a plastic cover over the thermal grease that comes with the CPU cooler. This does not have that. It just had this plastic thing protecting it, but sometimes there's a plastic film you have to peel off, and if you don't peel off the plastic film over this, it's not going to be good. You also do not want to touch the thermal grease, but yes, this does not have a piece of plastic over it. I was able to tell by, scraping a little bit of the corner of it to see, just to make really sure that there isn't a plastic over the thermal grease, which is that square right there. Very important. The CPU cooler has two hooks on either side. Well, I should say the motherboard has the hooks. These has brackets that clamp. Okay, you see this right here? That hooks on to that. And you go like this, hook it on. And then make sure the other side goes over it. And then once you get it popped on, make sure both sides are hooked on. You lift up this. Yeah, it's going to take a lot of pressure to put this tab over, because that puts it needs a lot of pressure to put on the CPU to get proper cooling. And I do believe the cooler could go on either direction like this, but I just did it so the wire that plugs in right here. Some other boards are different. I just made it to where the wire wouldn't be crumbled up right there. Go ahead and plug that in now. But yeah, don't be afraid to put a lot of force on this. It needs a lot of force. You're not going to break it. It does same with the RAM.